Chapter 27. Interrogation. Detective Riley sat in the police car, his mind still reeling from the chaos and violence he had witnessed at the halfway house. His concern for Officer James weighed heavily on his heart. Despite his persistent inquiries, the other officers accompanying him remained tight-lipped, refusing to provide any updates on James's condition. As they drove back to the police station, a sense of unease settled upon Riley. Something felt amiss, and his instincts told him that the silence surrounding Officer James was not a good sign. His gaze wandered aimlessly, seeking answers, until his eyes locked onto a beautifully grim sight. Through the window of the police car, Riley spotted a scene that further deepened his apprehension. Surrounding an ambulance, cop cars were positioned haphazardly, their flashing lights illuminating the night. But it was the sight that awaited him beyond the chaos that caused his heart to sink. A massive cherry tree, its branches penetrating the very roof of the ambulance. A chilling realization washed over Riley as he connected the dots. The presence of the cherry tree, a macabre symbol of Shinigami's influence, confirmed his worst fears. The tree's intrusion into the ambulance painted a grim picture of what had befallen Officer James. A heavy silence fell over the police car as the truth hung heavily in the air. Riley's mind raced with a mix of grief, anger, and determination. He knew that he had to uncover the full extent of what had transpired, to seek justice for Officer James, and all the lives affected by the person in the samurai armor. But at this point, Riley wasn't even sure that it was a person. As the police car continued its journey to the station, the weight of the situation intensified. Riley's resolve hardened, fueled by the loss of his comrade and the knowledge that the battle against the samurai was far from over. He understood that they were facing an enemy that defied conventional understanding, an adversary that threatened the fabric of reality itself. Riley vowed to uncover the truth, to expose the darkness that had plagued their lives, and to bring an end to the samurai. Detective Riley stepped out of the police car and entered the familiar surroundings of the police station. A wave of disorientation washed over him. The concussion he had sustained during the encounter with the samurai left him with a throbbing headache and a persistent feeling of unease. He struggled to maintain composure and suppress the disquieting thoughts swirling in his mind. Looking back to the officer driving, Riley attempted to keep his composure and veil of authority. "Edward, when you're finished parking, bring the prisoner to the interrogation room." "You got it," Edwards replied without hesitation. Walking through the halls, Riley couldn't shake off the vivid memories of the battle that had unfolded. The images of black smoke, the clash of swords, and the haunting presence of the cherry trees were etched deeply into his consciousness. It felt like a waking nightmare, and he questioned his own sanity in the face of such surreal experiences. He knew that he had to gather information, to find answers to the unsettling events that had transpired. However, he also grappled with the fear of sounding unhinged or delusional when sharing his account with his colleagues. How can I explain the involvement of this mysterious woman wielding a sword, the supernatural abilities displayed by the samurai, or even the fact that there was a samurai? No, now he even thought he might be crazy. Doubts and apprehension gnawed at Riley, threatening to unravel his resolve. The line between reality and fantasy blurred, leaving him trapped in a disorienting limbo. He felt an urgency to uncover the truth, yet the fear of being labeled insane or dismissed as a conspiracy theorist loomed large. Taking a deep breath, Riley attempted to calm himself, seeking comfort in the familiarity of his surroundings. He knew that he couldn't let his own uncertainties hinder his investigation. He had seen the strange events firsthand, and he understood the gravity of the threat they were facing. Wait, there were 2 other cops there. They even shot the samurai, Riley thought, feeling a little bit more secure that others wouldn't think him crazy about what he saw. Riley sought out the other two officers to get their thoughts on the encounter. Detective Riley sat down with the two officers who had been present during the encounter. A glimmer of hope ignited within him. The knowledge that he wasn't alone in witnessing the inexplicable events bolstered his confidence and validated his own perceptions of the supernatural. As they began to recount their version of the events, Riley listened intently, eager to hear their perspective. "Detective, we are sorry we couldn't get there sooner. Wish we could have done more." Officer Schneider expressed, "Yeah, James was a great guy. We know he greatly enjoyed working with you," affirmed Officer Brammer. Quickly, Riley turned his attention to Brammer. "So you two spoke of the case we were working on?" With a look as though he had been caught doing something wrong, Brammer snapped back. No. James never divulged any information about the case, just expressed his delight working with you. That's it." It was easy for Riley to sense they were uncomfortable speaking of anything to do with the case, even outside of what had occurred hours ago. "Can you give me your official account of the evening's event?" Schneider was the first to speak. "Yes, we got the call at 0131. We both, Brammer and I, arrive and make entry. Upon entry, we saw you at the base of a wall, moving, and Officer James clutching his chest. Standing on the other side of the room stood a person in armor wielding a sword. Between him and the two of you stood a woman facing the armor-clad person. Identifying the one in armor as the greatest threat, we opened fire, striking the assailant's armor, causing him to flee," Schneider stated, looking to Brammer for approval of his story. Riley's initial excitement of two others sharing his experience turned into dismay as he realized that their recollection omitted anything that deviated from the ordinary. Their narrative focused solely on the presence of a woman standing before Riley and his partner, the man in armor who had seemingly shrugged off their gunfire, and the subsequent escape of the assailant. It became apparent to Riley that the officers were deliberately withholding the details that would expose the true nature of the encounter. Fear of being labeled as crazy or facing disbelief from their colleagues had driven them to sanitize their accounts, conforming to the boundaries of conventional reality. Determined to uncover the full truth of the situation, Riley knew he had to gain their trust. He approached the officers in a more informal setting, speaking with them off the record. Leaning back slightly in his chair, Riley reached into his desk drawer, pulling out a pack of cigarettes and lighter. "You smoke?" Schneider immediately said, "Yes," as if he was just seconds away from lighting up himself. Officer Brammer, "No, I really don't." Riley stopped him before he could go into a rant. Yeah. Today you do, let's go." Minutes later, they were outside, away from the station, and far enough away from anyone that could hear their conversation. After lighting their cigarettes, Riley looked to the two officers. "Okay, let's have it. I know the shit was crazy, but tell me." The two officers looked at each other as if they both were silently telling the other, "You do it, not me." "Okay, I'll start. You shot a smoky samurai," Riley said, attempting to not roll his eyes or laugh as he did. In this safe space, away from the judgmental eyes of their peers, the officers began to open, revealing the extraordinary aspects of what they had witnessed. Riley listened attentively, realizing the immense significance of their shared experiences. The supernatural abilities displayed by the samurai, the clash of swords, and the presence of the mysterious woman were no longer confined to his own perception. They were tangible events that had left an indelible mark on the lives of those involved. The officers' reluctance to repeat their account to others spoke volumes about the extraordinary nature of their encounter. They understood the potential consequences of openly discussing the inexplicable, yet their willingness to confide in Riley indicated a shared experience between them. "Sir, Detective Riley," Officer Edwards shouted from the back door of the station to where the three of them stood. As Riley looked over Edwards, then shouted, "Interrogation Room 2." Quickly, Riley dismissed the two officers and made his way to conduct his interrogation of the person he believed to go by the alias Akiko. As he neared, he attempted to do his best to steady his nerves and calm himself. Entered Interrogation Room 2, his eyes fixated on Kichi, who was handcuffed to the table, awaiting the interrogation. A mix of curiosity, frustration, and a deep desire for answers churned within him. As he entered, Kichi asked, "What is the condition of the officer who was stabbed?" He couldn't help but voice his burning answer to that question as to the condition of his fallen comrade. "Officer James." Riley's voice was filled with a heavy sadness. "He's turned into a goddamn tree," he uttered, his tone filled with anguish and disbelief. The reality of James's transformation into one of the samurai's cherry trees weighed heavily on his heart. Seeking to gain information from Kichi, Riley pushed forward with the interrogation. He inquired about her connection to the supernatural, specifically focusing on the fox witch. "So, we were able to bring you in, but what we couldn't locate is your fox witch companion." "Yeah, I know all about it, Akiko Yamamoto." "Well, at least that is who you want us to believe you are, isn't it?" Riley could see her surprise that he even knew about the existence of the fox witch, but his thirst for knowledge and the need to uncover the truth propelled him forward. "Are you not supposed to ask one question at a time during an interrogation? In order to get clear answers to specific questions, that is, no overlap," Kichi asked calmly, to throw Riley off his game more than anything else. However, before Riley could respond, the room was suddenly engulfed in darkness as the lights went out. A chilling silence descended, punctuated only by the faint sound of their breathing. Riley's heart quickened, realizing that this sudden disruption could be more than just a mere electrical malfunction. In the darkness, Riley's training kicked in. He reached for his flashlight, hastily flicking it on to shed some light on the situation. Illuminated by the beam, he could make out Kichi's figure, her features masked by shadows. The intensity of the moment heightened his senses as he braced himself for the unknown. With caution in his voice, Riley called out, "What the hell is going on? Is this your doing, Akiko?" He was determined to find answers, to uncover the truth hidden within the darkness that had enveloped them, but the room remained silent, Kichi offering no immediate response. The air was thick with anticipation, and Riley knew that he had to remain vigilant, ready to face whatever awaited them in the darkness. The battle against Shinigami had escalated, and he realized that the forces they were dealing with were far beyond his comprehension. As Riley waited for Kichi's answer, his grip tightened around his flashlight. The flickering beam cast eerie shadows, dancing across the room's walls, as if mirroring the uncertainty and danger that lay ahead. With each passing second, the weight of the supernatural world pressed upon. With the lights out in the interrogation room, Detective Riley could not see the transformation of the fox witch into Officer Edwards. Instead, he heard a familiar voice that seemed to belong to Officer Edwards, asking, "Everything okay in here, Detective? Seems we are having an issue with the power." Riley, taken aback by the situation but needing to act swiftly, responded, "I need you to stay with Akiko and keep her secure. I'm going to find out what the hell is happening and try to restore the power." He trusted that Officer Edwards would fulfill the duty of securing Kichi while he investigated the cause of the blackout. With that, Riley quickly left the interrogation room, determined to bring an end to the current situation. Rounding the corner at the end of the long hall, Detective Riley's heart raced as he collided with Officer Edwards. The shock on Riley's face was evident as he stammered, "I told you to stay with the prisoner." Officer Edwards, equally perplexed, responded with an air of confusion, "No, you asked me to place the prisoner into the interrogation room and then come find you, which I did." His voice carried a tone of honesty and bewilderment, indicating that he had followed Riley's instructions as they were given. Realization hit Riley like a jolt of electricity. He had been tricked, deceived by an unknown force masquerading as Officer Edwards. Panic surged through his veins as he quickly assessed the situation. With a sense of urgency, he sprinted back to Interrogation Room 2, his heart pounding in his chest. He entered the room, his eyes scanned the area, searching for Akiko and the entity posing as Officer Edwards. To his dismay, all he found were open handcuffs, resting innocently on the table. The room was devoid of any sign of the prisoner or the mysterious entity that had taken Edwards' form. A sense of dread washed over Riley as he realized the gravity of the situation. He had failed to secure their only witness, and she was now missing, potentially at the mercy of the supernatural forces that had infiltrated the police station. As he left the interrogation room, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on Riley's shoulders. He was determined to locate Kichi and uncover the truth behind the enigma that had engulfed them all.